Hello, everybody. This is Jose from AMI.
Hey, Joe. Jonas here. Can you hear me?
Yes, Jonas. Now I'm able to. Yes. Hello.
Hey. So we'll give it a couple of more minutes so we get some quorum here. Bob is not joining today.
Hello, John.
Hi there.
Hey, John. We're just waiting a little bit. Some people are joining a little bit later. I wanted to have a little bit of a discussion on the message bus today. I know Anand has been doing some tests with different type of technologies, and there has been some discussion. So I want to start with that, but I guess Anand said he'd join in 2 minutes. Bob is not going to be here, so we have for TSC we have Joe's, we have myself, and that's about it for now. And who's the LFN new projects host? Is that some anonymous way of joining from LFN? Sorry, who is it?
Hi, Jonas. Yeah, sorry. This is Lewis.
Oh, hey, Lewis.
Program manager. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, the reason I came in under that so that we get the recording and everything, and
yeah, very good.
It's the proper bridge. Yep.
Yeah, no problems. So, who else? Emil. I guess, okay, Anand is here. I guess I could start with a pathology scan just to give an update on that. So we had, Lewis, you were running a pathology scan initially on the project, and there were a couple of things that came out, nothing serious. There were some files that were not, I think, mentioned what license they had, and there were a couple of other things. So we address all of your concerns, I think, and we did a new scan, and I actually sent that out to TSC yesterday. So hopefully that can be closed at this point in time, I'm thinking.
Yeah, I saw your email from the other day. It looks like everything's been addressed, so I think we can close it for now.
I mean, there could be, as we continue to contribute here, all of us, it's probably healthy exercise to run a pathology scan every now and then, I'm thinking. So we can do that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And do you have access to the tools page? I can send it out to everybody if you don't have it, but that needs to be done pretty much at every release.
Oh, yeah, okay. So let me take a note on that. Okay. So is there a tools page, you said, where you can get access to the Fossology tool?
Yeah, you can get access to the various tools, including the FOSS scan. So I'll send that out to everybody. I'll do it while the meeting's underway. I'll get everybody the link to the tools.
And I don't know if everybody knows what Fossology is. It's kind of a tool that will go through all the files and detect licenses, as well as no licenses, I guess. And it's very helpful. I mean, it will give you, for instance, some people might contribute and they have grabbed some stuff from other projects, and these type of things can get us into trouble. So it's a good thing to do every now and then, and to address anything that is found in there. So
What tool is that, Jonas?
it's called Fossology, Fossology. Sorry, I was having a brain fart. Yeah, and it's been around for a few years. It started as a project. I think it's still a project. Is it, Luis? Or I know HP was part of it for a while.
Yeah, I believe it is. I'm not really sure.
Okay, send a link to the tools page. Okay, so that's a good thing, and we should do that before every release then. So
Yes.
should be before every release. Okay. Sorry, yeah, and we have Susan Bowen here as well now. She's a colleague of mine, and she's been managing ODIM efforts on HPE side for a long time. And she's going to help out with things like Bob has been doing, and perhaps also for our first release. I don't know if we talked about a release manager, if we want to rotate that role, and that's probably something that would be a good idea if we have any volunteers when the time for rotation comes along. But for initially, she's going to be focusing on that. Just,
hey, everyone.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think it's a good idea, Jonas. This is a very much needed role.
Yeah.
For this effort.
Yeah. All right. Good. So with that, I don't know if you want to give a short introduction of yourself, Susan, because I guess I didn't do a fair one. So please go ahead.
Yeah, hi everyone. I've had some, I'm a program manager, have been for a very long time, and I have some previous experience with different open source projects. I also do work with the HPE releases of ODIM. And so, yeah, I would be very glad to help out on the open source side. This is pretty exciting stuff. And yeah, in the beginning, what Jonas and I talked about was just starting out by helping to capture action items and minutes from these meetings. So if you have things you want recorded, let me know, and I'll just kind of take notes as we go along. Oh, and I'm in Colorado, so I'm actually in the same I'm in Fort Collins as Jonas is, so don't know where everybody else is, but welcome from Colorado. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah. So with that, then, if we closed on Fossology, and another topic today was the message bus discussion, and I know William has been involved from Red Hat quite a bit, and Anand has been testing a little bit. So I wanted to start with this because I know William has to leave at the bottom of the hour. So Anand, could you tell us a little bit what you have been doing so far, and perhaps we can bridge from that into a discussion on how to move forward?
Yeah. Yesterday I have pushed the first kind of push. It's only the POC kind of implementation which I have done using AMQP. And the server side, I'm just using the Qubit dispatch router for this implementation. And because of the system which I'm using Mac, because of that, I am running this Qubit server as a container. And I was able to send the message and receive it on the other end. So the basic test is fine, it's working. The next part would be to take this particular code base and then try to test with our existing modem APIs, because whatever the modem API which we are having currently now, I'm having the similar implementation already done as part of my private repo. So I'm testing with that now, the integration part. So once it's done, it should be very easy for us to integrate it with our message bus.
So when you say you have pushed something, it's on your
It's
private
not,
branch, right?
yes, it's in the not in the branch. It's totally different repository. I have given
private repository.
yeah, I have given the link over there in the discussion wherever the feature request has been raised by you.
Yeah.
So I have given the details.
So just to make it clear, right? So today you have tested just using Cupid and not integrating it with ODIM or anything. It's more like putting stuff on the bus and retrieving it and these type of things. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And any concerns there as far as it being a good fit for ODIM with regards to, you know, a few servers, like less than 20 or so? I guess for now we're not using the message bus for anything else than sticking events on it, right? So if a plugin is retrieving an event or seeing something that needs to be a Redfish compliant event, the plugin will stick it on the message bus, and then it will be retrieved by ODIM's event service, and then it will be distributed to northbound subscribers solely through a post exercise today, unfortunately, but that's something we can enhance. So that's the use for it today. If we move to telemetry, to implement the telemetry service, there is also it could be used for telemetry type of things as well.
Sebastian here.
Go ahead.
The problem what I currently have with like looking really on the message bus is that's why I sent the email to get a better understanding of the architecture. I'm not sure how the others are feeling about this, but wouldn't it make sense first to have a good understanding about the architecture so that we then can decide what message bus we want to go?
Yeah. Yes.
Currently the current implementation, the message bus implementation, is purely done as a utility. What we are doing is we are trying to use one of the backend platform like Kafka or Not's Cupid. So the code is written in such a way where we should be able to configure, or the user who's going to use the message bus can say, okay, I want to use Kafka instead of NATS in just one line, and then just send the message. So that should be possible. That's the goal. That's how we designed this message bus. So by introducing one new platform into it, like Qubit or NATS or RabbitMQ, whatever stream what we need to do, or the user wants, it's almost like writing a small plugin and just one file, just write it and then implement whatever interface is specified as part of this particular message bus. Just implement those functions and just integrate it, should work fine. It's kind of a utility module instead of writing it from scratch. So we are using one of the platform in the background, yes.
But so I guess what Sebastian wants to see is kind of an overview of how things are implemented today in ODIM with regards to the message bus. So there is the sender, which is usually then the plugins, and then there is the subscriber, who in this case is ODIM, and that we should have a session on that, I guess. And we have now there is another point today to discuss what do we want to see in a code review, code walkthrough, or getting started type of session from HPE that we're planning to give in a few weeks. But I think there we can have an overview session for an hour or so, and then we need to dive into things. And I guess the message bus is important then to start talking about, because this is the first external contribution that seems to be coming up here.
Jonas,
Yeah.
I do remember last week or so, we talked about having a deep dive session to go into the components and how the architecture is put together. And basically from there, I don't know if that happened or not. I probably missed it then.
No,
okay.
Hasn't happened yet. That's what I was talking about. We're working on putting that session together, but I think, you know, depending on how deep we go, it can take days. So we need to gather some requirements for the different sessions and start with the first one, overview. That's what I'm intending to do today. And then I'm thinking, like, in a couple of weeks, we can schedule that session, because we need to prepare some material on our side.
Okay, because it will be first, obviously, a more deep overview of the platform. And then, for example, today, how does it scale? I mean, what are the deployment architecture that are possible to scale it? And I think with that, then we can figure out the best way to include these use cases that have more limited resources, but need to integrate into something like that, or at least where do they fit or how?
Yes, that would be the logical chain of events, I think. I think, though, that for moving to a more thinner message bus solution, we kind of have an idea, I think, to some extent, what we want to hit. Obviously, there might be different degrees of being embedded, like you mentioned in one of your posts, William. I guess, you know, if you want to live on something very, very small, or if you have a couple of cores and a few gigs of memory, I mean, there are different degrees, obviously. The use case that we have been thinking about on our side a little bit is to be able to, because if you're at the edge, you don't want to dedicate a lot of servers to run your control plane and your management software and things. So there we were thinking you could probably fit it into a switch or something like that, or something else a little smaller that could be part of something like that. So that's type of our thoughts. But I agree with you. We could obviously hold off till we have an overview and an understanding in the whole community. I do think, though, that to be able to discuss this, we should be able to do that before, I think. Don't you agree?
This is Alex. I apologize. I have a bit of a personal emergency today. My dad is really sick. So I think what would be useful I would agree that we need to have a good overview of what's going on inside ODIM in order for us to make any reasonable decisions around, you know, what the bus should look like, or whether or not it's even should be included as part of the project. You know, another option would be to assume that there is an integration fabric of sorts that is either bus-based or something else, and all we need to do is create the right abstractions in terms of interfaces, and then, you know, how that translates into an actual implementation could be based on, you know, a company by company basis or whatever. But yeah, I think the use cases that that we need to iron out also at the same time it would be useful to do that. So, for example, I would like to ensure that whatever we do, that we have the ability to embed ODIM inside hardware. Okay, I think you just alluded to the same thing by saying it's a switch. It may not.
Yeah, it's just an example. Yeah.
Yeah, it may not be a switch. It may be something else.
Yeah, exactly.
But you know, I also agree with you that on the edge, especially where the real estate is really precious and the capacity is really precious because you don't have a lot of servers, that's going to be key, right? And that will to some extent dictate, you know, the simplicity or the complexity or the footprint of everything we do, right? And language choice, because if we start implementing things using pretty heavy languages, you know, you'll need more CPU power, you'll need to have more resources to support proper function. It could be problematic. So I think there are lots of things that you know might get impacted if we start talking about the embedded use case. But we should define it, and we should maybe sort of, you know, take a stab at saying, you know, what would be sort of functionality and what would be the minimum requirements around that use case that we would want to fulfill. And then, you know, we can decide based on that, you know, what, you know, all the supporting infrastructure is going to look like, right?
Yeah. A couple of things. I guess we could hold off this whole discussion till we have gone through the training and defined all the use cases and these type of things. But in all fairness, Anand has already been started looking at some of this stuff. So at least I think we should consider it and have a discussion around it. Secondly, whether or not the bus should be included in the project, that train has left the station. It's contributed. I'm sorry, well, but I mean, we can have different use cases, and we may be able to disconnect the bus use.
Look at it this way, right? There's presumably a set of interfaces defined to publish and subscribe and create event notifications and things like that. So yes, we include the reference implementation would include a particular bus. We may choose a different one. You know, I have my personal favorite, you know, others may have too. I don't know what Anand is thinking, but you know, whatever it is, right? Point is that we should not preclude other buses from being substituted in, and that could be a requirement. And so this way, for embedded use case, we could use something silly and simple like MQTT. You know, for more robust cases, we can use more elaborate frameworks. We could even do IPaaS, integration platform as a service integrations, if we really wanted to, because a lot of enterprises use that kind of crap. So you know, like look at an example of that is TIBCO, right? So they've been building these integration frameworks for a long time. So so there may be, this is why, and I don't think we need to wait to define these requirements or these capabilities until we do the deep dive. I think we can do that in parallel, right?
Yeah.
Once we know what requirements we have in front of us, and once we understand the structure of ODIM, then I think we can have an intelligent discussion about what the bus should look like. That's my opinion. But I don't think we need to be serial. I think we need to do this in parallel.
Yep. Yeah. I agree. So back to you, Anand. So you push this to a private repository then, where one can look at this. But is there, I guess, there is and we need to get to that training, and there is a set of APIs on top of the bus that are already defined in the ODIM code that is being used by ODIM today to retrieve something and by plugins to put something on there. And are you then of the opinion, Anand, that the underlying actual bus could be switched, and we could decide what type of bus we want to use by setting it up in some sort of a configuration file inside ODIM or something like that?
Yes, whatever existing interface which is currently now in message bus will be same as is. There won't be any change in it. The only change that we may be seeing is a configuration file that we need to mention whether we need to use Kafka or MQTT or Qubit. So when the user mentioned that as part of that configuration, the message bus should be able to read that configuration and then just use that platform instead of the other default one.
Now, just a quick question. Why wouldn't we simply say that here are the interfaces that, and basically in terms of signatures and contracts that you have to fulfill if you are going to substitute a different bus? So,
Yes, that is that's already existing.
okay, so as long as somebody, let's say, somebody, like HP builds a distro of this, which you are, right? That's the resource aggregator product. But let's say somebody else builds another distro. If they so choose, they could replace the bus because their implementation might be embedded or it might be hybrid. Who knows what it is, right? My point is that as long as we define the interfaces and rely on those to abstract away the implementation, it should be possible to do. It should be fairly simple.
Yeah, I think that's the plan here. I think, so obviously there might be different buses, and let's say Kafka has been tested and we know it scales, and that might be part of a release. But let's say we get a Cupid based bus in, and then we might not give that as part of the release initially, like we talked about before. We just need to see its maturity, and we need to see some usage of it, and then once we feel confident that this is also going to work, and here are the limitations, by the way, don't go over 50 nodes or whatever, then we can lift that up to be part of a release as well, and then it's up to whoever wants to take the release and make a product of it to pick the bus, right?
Right. Or you can simply certify that certain buses will work within certain performance, availability, security characteristics, right? You can simply say that, by default, we're using Kafka. But if you want to use Cupid, if you want to use MQTT, if you want to use, the next greatest thing, or if you already have a bus, this is what you need to do. And by the way, Cupid will work, but here are the limits. I mean, we can simply do the testing and the certification and say that will it work or will it not work? And then whoever wants to use the alternative implementation will make their decision. Yeah,
and I think so. The change to ODIM here that is on the table right now is the ability to be able to switch out the bus, which is not completely there today. So that's going to be the change to ODIM, and then the actual bus we're going to use, I think we will see then, depending on like Anand has been doing some POC type of stuff for himself to try to figure out feasibility and so on and so forth. That will come through that process we just discussed, right?
Yes, I think that would be the best thing to do would be to sever the hard connection between the interfaces and the particular implementation of the bus, and then we're in good shape from that point on, I think.
Okay, so I think that's a good progress there, and before.
I'm sorry, just a side thought just occurred to me. If we're going to work with projects like ONAP that already have like at least 3 buses by last count. That's also going to be interesting, right? Because, we need to be able to, I guess what I'm saying is that things kind of work both ways. We should also look at different kind of, service bus implementations or integration fabric implementations and see if the existing interfaces are going to be sufficient to embrace the richness of these solutions, right? So it's not that you may have limitations. We may be needing to extend the interfaces that exist today a little bit, right? Depending on what functionality we want to have at minimum. So that's the other thing we can do is actually look at projects that would potentially consume ODIM or integrate with ODIM. And if they already have a way of integrating all this componentry together, plus, whatever's commercially available or in open source available, we can actually maybe come up with an MVP kind of list and say, at minimum, whatever we do in terms of interfaces also has to support, this kind of operation. And then if we make changes, we can.
Alex, I just want to give some time to William as well. He has 1 minute left before he has to leave. So, Yeah, so William, based on this work that Anand has done, and I know the conversation might continue on the actual issue here, but any thoughts or anything?
Yeah. So in all this, again, I'm listening just because I really want to understand more details on what's happening there. And okay, so please correct me if what I'm understanding is not accurate. So okay, we are talking about a single unit embedded somewhere. Okay, we are not talking about how these discrete units are going to be registering or doing anything on a larger scale. Because again, let's say a server, a switch has this. Okay, perfect. And that is a micro bus. Will this affect or not, or will be completely independent if now we take the same problem and multiply by 100,000 of these units? Are we gonna solve that, or how are we gonna work on these two different modes?
Yeah. I think so 100,000 units is I can just be honest, we haven't tested that, right? But
No,
a few
but
thousand.
this is about the ODIM instances, not about the servers he's talking about.
Yeah.
So he's saying 100,000 sites which have ODM and maybe a few servers.
But that yeah, then the bus does not it's not visible outside ODIM, if you put it that way. To do that, to be able to scale up, we need to think about concepts like aggregator of aggregators and things of that nature, which go ahead.
No, I that's exactly where I was going. William, I think we need to tease apart two scenarios. One has to do with intra-ODIM instance communication. So what happens between all the management services and also the exposure of the interfaces to other software entities that want to consume ODIM. And that can happen at multiple levels. And so then there is the whole conversation we need to have about how the ODIM instances communicate long distance, like over long haul, a short haul, but it should be consistent. It may not be the same set of technologies, right?
Okay, yes, that's what I wanted to make sure. I mean, okay, yeah, I think that clarifies.
But the aggregation, the aggregator of aggregators of aggregators of aggregators, to me, that was a preordained kind of notion. Like I assumed that that's what we would be doing in the end.
Yeah, and I think the MTF already has the concept, even though they're not aware of it. Because if you think about some sort of an enclosure, right? Yep. And then you stick an enclosure on the ODIM. Now you have aggregators of aggregators, right? So it's
yeah. Well, the other way of looking at it is, right, there's another organization, it's a standards organization that defines the whole zero-touch management APIs, right, and interfaces, and HP is there, Intel is there, you know, others are there as well. Ericsson is there. And so from that perspective, you know, we, in that group, we have defined this notion of administrative domains. They can be arbitrarily large, arbitrarily small, but one thing they all have for sure is this notion of a domain controller, right? And to me, ODIM, in some sense, is one way to implement that domain controller that knows how to manage a set of resources below it. So, so again, I think we just need to make sure that whatever we come up with is consistent with some of the other high visibility or high order standards that we're also involved in. But it would,
But I do think that this task, that the issue that is raised now is more. Initially, I thought, okay, so we need a smaller bus that could fit into a smaller space as far as limited resources. But I think the big change is really to make sure that we abstract away the bus we use, and so we make it switchable. And then what Anand has been looking at is some different bus technologies, and there I think it's all goodness to get a new one in for smaller, but it might be that, okay, it's not small enough, or we want something in between. Today we have NATs, we have Cupid, perhaps we want something in between for a little larger type of deployment. And that can come later, but the ability to actually switch them out is key
Yes.
for this product to be successful, because you know, you're going to have different type of companies using it for different things, and we're also going to have you know, different type of geographical locations for this.
Yes. And I think for geo-distribution, right, for the connectivity between ODIM instances, within a data center, across a data center, doesn't, you know, across the WAN, whatever's required. I think it's not really a bus-based implementation. At least that's my hope, right? Because buses work really well within the confines of a given domain, but not so well across, you know.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. I don't think that's a discussion topic right now, but I think we need to have that discussion, and I'm absolutely in line with what you were saying there. So.
Okay.
So talking about the small footprint. So if we're targeting microbuses in this case, do we want to define what that means in terms of, are we talking about one core, half core, three cores?
One core, at least, you know, from our perspective.
Okay, perfect.
So
I mean, I've seen, to be honest, William, this is not the first time I'm personally involved in stuff like this. So, you know, a long time ago in a galaxy far away, we used the Java J2ME chip, a Java chip from Sun, to implement an embedded management instance that looked a lot like ODIM. So, you know, you could make things very tidy and very small. So,
yeah, just try to put what small means.
Well,
the discussion.
That little chip ran a full-blown implementation of JMX with the MB servers and everything else. This was a long time ago, but what I'm saying is that, you know, it could be smaller than a single core. It could be, you know, something really low powered and whatnot. But again, I think we can establish some lower bounds and say, for simplicity's sake, one core is probably good enough.
Yeah, I think it depends on what the exact use case is, but in our case, I'm thinking 1 or 2 cores. Yeah.
I think the point William brings up also, I guess, also would apply across the board, right? You know, there's some minimal set of ODIM management services that we would always want to include, and some of the other stuff may be additional or kind of subsettable or substitutable. If that's the case, then you can kind of figure out what that minimum set of services is and what compute, storage, and memory requirements they would have.
Right, because then that limit is where we have to fit everything that we call embedded.
Yes.
So yes,
that's what I mean by when I said we should work on that in parallel with a deep dive. That's kind of what I meant. We need to kind of look at these use cases and really figure out what they mean, not just, you know, write a pretty sentence somewhere, right? That's the part we need to do.
But there might be, and I agree with you, William. It's good to put some numbers down and say this is where we want to fit in, and perhaps let's do it. I just want to flag for that it might be not the only change that is needed to ODIM to switch out the message bus. Today we are doing some caching as well as far as the resources, so that we don't need to go out and ask every server again what is your memory configuration, or what is your how many disks you have, just because a new client is requesting it on the northbound side. And that type of caching is obviously taking up some memory. Having said that, in a smaller environment, you will have less servers, so it might be less of a problem. But I'm just saying that there might be other things in today's solution that we need to scrutinize and look at a little bit in order for us to be able to fit it into a more smaller resource type of approach. So I think this is the first issue raised with the message bus because it was the most obvious limitation today, but there might be other type of work we have to do.
Yeah, I would agree.
So how do we, so should we just, I mean, Alex, you have some history there with embedded stuff. I can put down what our envelope is today, what we are thinking about, and
Okay.
then we can see that if, you know, if we can get some consensus around that and see this is what
Yeah,
we
we
want to.
can. You know, I can probably, let me go back to the team that's actually working on this already and see what we can see.
Yeah. Yeah, good. And so to move ahead then with what Anand is working on is, Anand, you have your private repo, and that's fine. We can look at it. But what would be the next step? And here I want to see if Bharat is here as well. Yeah, Bharat, you're here. Good. Could we? So this is my just spontaneous gut type of reaction to this. Could we create a feature branch trying to make the changes to ODIM there so we can switch out the bus? And then we work in that feature branch to do that so we can get the collaboration across. Or I mean, the other alternative is to do it on a private repo and then you share the private repo across. It's up to you guys. I just, it's more transparent if everybody can see it, I guess.
I think a feature branch would work as long as it's not too much overhead for you guys. That would probably be best, I think. But
yeah, and it can live there for a while, and we can see, you know, and then, you know, perhaps before the release or before some release, we can lift it in, right?
Yeah.
Any thoughts? But Bharat, I'm calling you out here because Bharat is working for the engineering team, and he is kind of one of the lead architects over there. So, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think a feature branch would be okay. Yeah, the key thing, as you said, you know, that there should be visibility, and so we'll be knowing what's happening and what to expect. So, and yep, so feature branch should be okay, I think.
Okay, very good. So just some actions then. Jonas and Alex, we'll start a wiki page with different embedded configuration proposals or alternatives. Do you think, Alex? Or?
Let me get organized here. Hang on.
And then anybody can add their own little configuration there, and we can see what is the most common use case, and we can build from there.
Sure.
Yeah. Jonas, the other thing is that, you know, we really want to see like what are the kind of features we're looking for. Say current usages are all related to publish, subscribe. That's one thing I wanted to bring in. The second thing is that QDR is, I mean, again, we need to review if we want that, because that's like a relay agent, right? It's used for scaling communication between, usually between the brokers. So do we really need that in our
No,
thing?
let's focus on what you have been doing. And
okay.
again, let's identify the footprints we are targeting. And then with that, if we have to talk about the different integration, how, for example, in the same site, multiple ODIMs will integrate, then we explore all that. So I'm not in the let's choose a tool first. let's solve the problem first, and then we can play with whatever tools.
Mm-hmm.
No, but I was not talking about the tools in particular, you know, the paradigms that they afford and how that fits into the ODIM architecture is what I'm saying. We can have 10 different message buses added, but as long as the paradigms match our requirements, then that's okay.
Today we have a publish subscribe type of approach, right? So the whatever plugin is just sticking it on the bus, done. Yep. If we were to change that, the impact on today's code with ODIM would be greater, I guess. That's the only.
Yeah. And also, like if you're talking about peer-to-peer communication, then that will introduce, I see that, you know, as introducing tighter couplings as a publish subscribe would suffice. And on to talk about the ODIM to ODIM interactions. Currently, like it's been designed that an NB orchestration system would talk to the ODIM. So it's, I don't think there's a precedent for ODIM to ODIM communication, but I'm not saying it shouldn't be done, but I'm just giving a background that, so the HTTPS interface that's exposed to the northbound, they connect to ODIM. ODIM and the component, the plugins, they talk using the message bus, especially for the events.
Yeah.
So guys, while you were talking, I've created a new page. It's called an action list. And there's a macro in Confluence that allows you to build to-do lists. And so that's what I did. I started inserting different actions and I added this one. We just defined DNS plus a couple of others that we had previously defined. Bob,
Oh.
I don't know if Bob is on the call.
No, he's not. He had a conflict today. But Alex, could you send a link to that out to the TSC?
Yeah, I will anchor it at the TSC page. So.
Okay, very good. So are we happy with the approach that we identified the different footprints? And I think we have a concern from Bharat, obviously, and that's a valid concern. Today we have a set of APIs then internal that is being used by ODIM to retrieve messages and so on. So if we have a publish, and we have assumed using those, creating those APIs, we have assumed an underlying publish, subscribe type of model and not the peer-to-peer thing. By introducing a peer-to-peer thing, it might affect those interfaces, and that impact will be higher, obviously. Then, so it's just a concern that I guess is being put forward. So we need to, when we look at those footprints, we need to decide accordingly.
Yeah, I think for every one of these little items that we're identifying, we just need to do a more detailed exploration. So embedded requirements is one, then trying to understand the communication needs and and what that implies in terms of hardware and software requirements also. That would be good to do. We can do those things in parallel even.
Yeah.
Talked about not doing it all in one meeting anyway.
Okay, and the action thing there, is that a wiki tool, or is it just a table you put up, or I mean?
It's so Confluence has a whole bunch of macros that you can embed in pages, and so I embedded a to-do list macro, and all I'm doing now is just I'm gonna anchor the I'm just working on an anchor for that page. That's all.
Okay, cool. Yeah, very good, very good. So I think we have a clear understanding of what needs to be done. I think the fact that we make changes to ODIM to be able to switch it out, that's all goodness, and we should start that work in the feature branch, and perhaps we pick one of the buses there as well as an example. Then there are some more work that needs to be done in order for us to understand the different footprints and what would be a good way forward there. Hopefully we wouldn't have to move away from a publish subscribe, but there might be reasons for that we leave that open. So we'll have that discussion. So this if we're done with that, then I guess we only have 15 more minutes, or actually 12, so that's why I'm trying to rush ahead here a little bit. I want to collect requirements on the training everybody feel we need. So we wanted from HPE side to give some sort of an overview and then more of a deep dive into the different areas. And we were thinking we could do that in like 1-hour sessions. So we would basically plan for something like a 40-minute type of content, and might it be slides and perhaps a little demo or what have you, and then allow for 20 minutes of Q&A. And then the thing though is that I guess it makes more sense to start from an overview and then dive into the different areas. But I think it's very difficult now to plan ahead and say, yes, we're going to have the overview, and then we're going to dive into the event service, and then we're going to dive into, you know, the session service, because it depends on a little bit what the audience feel is more interesting, and perhaps they have some contributions in mind. So perhaps we can take an approach where we prepare the first little overview session, and then we collect feedback, and then we come back a few weeks later with a deep dive. What are the thoughts here?
So I don't know, Raffle's on the call too, so chime in, Raffle. For my money, I'd like to understand, obviously the overview is a prerequisite for everything, right? We need to kind of get the lay of the land. I'd like to maybe have a focused discussion, or, you know, a deep dive into the pluggability, the pluggable interface, and the modules and all that.
Yes, I doubled it, Alex. So the overview is the first, and then the, let's say, deep dive into the plugin area.
Plugin, yeah. So we have we also have some support documentation there. Bharat, did we publish that, the plugin developers guide?
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
there. That's part of the bundle. Yeah.
But plugins is a good thing to dive into. So,
Yeah.
so we could, I mean, we could talk about, this is ODIM, and these are the different services, and here is how they are being configured, and so on and so forth. But eventually, we want to get down to some sort of a code walkthrough, because at least on a higher level, so if somebody feels, oh yeah, I want to go and contribute here, they at least understand the logic behind the service and the code, right?
Can we do a recording of this? Would that be possible?
Oh, that is the plan, because we don't want to redo this at a high frequency, if I put it that way.
Yeah, I think what would also be useful is maybe some discussion around where you guys are, you know, the evolution of this as you see it today, right? Based on what's been implemented and whatnot. I think some of the stuff that we talked about earlier in the meeting, you know, we could kind of start looking at how to augment or embrace and extend or whatever what's there, and kind of drive it in a particular direction. I think it would be good to understand.
When you say evolution, you mean like future features that we see?
Yeah, like what you guys have in mind. I think would be, you know, that would help us kind of coalesce maybe more of a release plan as well, and kind of say, well, this makes sense, this no longer makes sense because we have these other new requirements. It would be good to review kind of the current plan of record, and then kind of go from there.
Yes, I think on a higher level then, if we just start with the first session there, we have some overview of all the services, and perhaps a little bit on because there is also like what is implemented. There's a lot in the spec, and everything might not be implemented. How is it configured? And then you talk about the pluggable interfaces, and here a new pluggable interface might be the message bus in the future, but with definitely plugins on the southbound side, right?
And I've already said, I think, a couple of times, I kind of want to see the plugin API evolve into more of a generic plugin, so we can reuse the same interface for things other than management. So
yeah, that's the other discussion we should have around, you know, the whole open BMC thingy, and if the industry is going in that direction, that would help us, because we could have an open BMC plugin or a generic Redfish plugin, and then everybody could sort of gather around that. That would be a good thing.
So I don't know if how you guys feel about this. Let me throw something out. About 3 years ago, a bunch of companies got together under the umbrella of Creative Commons to have a conversation about pretty much another way of looking at ODIM. HP was there, Ericsson was there, Nokia was there. It was basically a whole bunch of telecommunication companies. And if you want to look at an example architecture of what we thought we would need in the end in order to manage distributed, distributed infrastructure at cloud scale, I can stick a slide somewhere on the web. But what you'll see is a lot of what we've talked about today, which is interface abstractions. And there's a notion of plugins there, and different kinds of plugins that you can create. So potentially we can use that as sort of food for thought of what we might want to do in this community.
Yeah, no, that's anything like that would always help, of course. But
Yeah.
for the sake of the training, I think we have some features and understanding then.
If we can cover in the first session, maybe this is too much. If we can cover sort of the general overview, and that would include, in my mind, the layout of the source code and everything else, what's where, so we know how to get around.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's a good point.
That's very important to start. This way we can start exploring on our own too. And then if we can cover the pluggability API, maybe that's a separate 40-minute session, because we need to, maybe it'll lead to a discussion as well once we start talking.
Yeah.
Then what's there, what's not there, what is meant to be there.
How about building it? Is that some, I mean,
yeah, absolutely. I think once we know the general stuff, we should get into how do you build it? How do you get started? Like if you look at it from a new developer perspective, you would want to know what kind of a development environment they need, how to build it, how to test it, things like that.
And also potentially I would start like more from the user perspective, like how to use it, and then the next step would be how to build it or how to develop with it. And for me, what would be also interesting would be like what external or APIs ODIM provides that external tools can talk to ODIM to provision stuff.
Yeah, we can at least, I mean, so the APIs are part of the spec, but I think we can go through the ones that are implemented and supported. Well, I mean, the thing is, time is always of the essence, right? So for the first session, if we are going to go through how to use it, how to configure the different services, and then the layout of the code as well as how to build it, I think we have already gone through an hour, unfortunately. So we might need to take it in steps, is my thinking. And
yeah, agree. I don't think it's something which we can cover in like one call because then, after a short time everyone is falling asleep. So I think we should having 2-3 calls like an hour and step by step, and then also like depending on what are the topics, specific people can decide if they want to join or not join the specific call.
Yeah, and perhaps after first session we will set up some sort of a wiki page with a wish list. What do we want to cover in the future, and people can add things there just to capture it, and then we'll see how many sessions we need, right? I think that's a good approach, because because people sit in and all of a sudden they get a lot of questions and we run out of time. So all right, we are running out of time here soon as well. So I think we have a good idea of what could be in the first session of the training there. So we'll focus on that. Was there anything else for today as far as, something we need to bring up? Any thoughts? And
all I'll say is that the action list has been anchored, so you guys can look at it. I put a bunch of stuff there. There was an agenda for today. Did we cover everything?
Yeah, it was my agenda yesterday. In the future, we will try to get it out the day before. And I just want to let everybody know that this agenda is something that the community will edit. So if you look at that and you see that, okay, I have something I feel we should address as well, just stick it in there, and so we'll just deal with it.
Yeah, because we can always roll it over to the next meeting if at least we have a running list. Anyway, if you are aware of other action items that that I didn't capture on that list, then please add them in. It's a very simple system. You know,
Yep.
you'll get the hang of it in about 2 nanoseconds.
Oh, I see the action list there. Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Don't expect the deep dive next week. We need a few weeks. We need to put together some material here, and I'll keep giving you updates. What's going on? All right, guys. If nothing else, I guess we can close today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jonas. Thank you all.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
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 Bye bye.